Hey guys, it's Maddie, and I'm back today to talk about some borderline personality disorder myths that give BPD a bad name. I was diagnosed with BPD about a year ago, and I was so ashamed that I didn't talk about it with anyone outside of my family until like 3 months ago because of all the misinformation out there that makes borderline people seem crazy. I mean, we are a bit crazy. We do be a little crazy though. I mean, I do be a little crazy. But now I know why I'm crazy, so that's really helpful. So, some myths about BPD. So, first, I'm going to explain what borderline personality disorder is for those of you that aren't aware. So, you need to have 5 out of 9 criteria in the DSM 5 to be diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. You can't be diagnosed until you're 18 years old. Before then, you can be diagnosed with developing BPD or something along those lines. I'm really not sure. I was diagnosed at the age of 21, so I'm not really clear on kids that have BPD, but I know that there are definitely signs in your childhood, and there were signs in mine that I had borderline personality disorder. Now, it's normally caused by a traumatic childhood or upbringing. My mom had bipolar when I was younger, and there were a lot of suicide attempts and things that just were really traumatizing for me. I had very abusive and toxic boyfriends, which was another trauma, and I also had a very personal health thing happen that was very traumatic. So the 9 criteria of BPD are: 1, an intense fear of abandonment; 2, a pattern of unstable interpersonal relationships; 3, unstable self-image or sense of self; 4, impulsive behaviors. I got a tattoo when I was 18, drunk at 3 a.m. in New Orleans. 5, suicidal or self-harming behaviors. 6, instability and mood swings. 7, chronic feelings of emptiness. 8, inappropriate anger or difficulty controlling their anger. And 9, paranoid idealization, delusions, or severe dissociation. So, if you have 5 of these criteria, it is likely that a therapist or psychiatrist will diagnose you with borderline personality disorder. Now, I don't want you to feel the way I did when I got diagnosed. I felt so ashamed. I felt like I needed to apologize to everyone in my life. But at the same time, it was like everything finally made sense and clicked for me. Like why I did the crazy shit that I did in the past, it just made sense. So honestly, it was a relief to get the diagnosis because now I've spent a year working on myself and working on these behaviors, and I still am diagnosed with BPD. It can go away. So basically, through therapy, you can get rid of some of these characteristics and no longer be diagnosed as BPD, but still have symptoms of BPD that show up in your life. It's very hard to rewire your brain and make it so that you think about things and react to things differently. And that's what therapy is about for people with BPD. We feel emotions so intensely that, like, simply ignoring a text from us can feel like losing a friend. I know when my boyfriend broke up with me, I felt like my life was ending. I felt like I was dying. I thought there was nothing else in my life that would go well, and that was because of my intense fear of abandonment. And now I know that. And so it's helpful to get this diagnosis because otherwise, if you stay untreated, you're so unhappy. I used to be so unhappy and angry, and I had no idea why I was so afraid of losing people in my life, or why I did some of the things I did that were just crazy. And I was afraid that I wasn't normal, and I was afraid to talk about these things with a therapist, which is why it probably took so long for me to get diagnosed. So, let's jump into myths about BPD because there are a lot out there and they give BPD a bad name. So, the first one I'm going to talk about is that people with BPD are just attention seeking. A lot of these behaviors can come out as attention seeking, but they're not. It's okay. So, my attention seeking behaviors came out in the form of an eating disorder. I had anorexia nervosa since I was 14 years old. I finally went to my second round of treatment exactly a year ago, actually. 1 year recovery, yay me. But it wasn't like I thought in my brain, how can I get attention today? Oh, let me stop eating and starve myself. It's just this innate need for attention that you never got during childhood that plays out in your adult life in toxic ways. So once you learn to control that, it's a lot better, but it can seem like attention seeking, but I promise that it's not. These behaviors that they're doing are a cry for help, and I wish that people would approach them with empathy rather than judgment. The second thing that is a myth surrounding BPD is that they cannot live their own independent and successful lives. Now, I have this negative thought record in my mind that goes on repeat, that I will never be successful, that I will never be able to do things. And it's not true, okay? Once you get the right treatment for BPD, you can be so successful, like more successful than you ever imagined. I know that before I went to treatment, I couldn't do anything. I couldn't hold a stable friendship, a stable relationship. I couldn't hold a job. I was struggling in school, but now that I'm in treatment and I'm learning new ways and I'm rewiring my brain and I'm using thought records and DBT and cognitive behavioral therapy and EMDR and treating my past traumas, I have friendships that I never imagined. I can recognize when I'm getting into a toxic relationship and stop myself. I can stop my impulsive behaviors. I can stop my toxic behaviors. And I know that someday I'm going to live a successful life, and that right now I'm laying down that foundation. So that is definitely another myth. The third one I'm going to talk about is that BPD is untreatable. This one makes me so angry because I've heard from people before that therapists and psychiatrists don't want to take on borderline patients because they're untreatable. And it is so false. There are so many treatments out there for people with BPD, and some people have made full recoveries and are living normal life, and they've rewired their brain and they're just living as normal human beings that don't have to have these intense emotions, or that when they have them, they recognize them and they validate them, and then they think, where does this go back to in my childhood? And they rewrite that. And so honestly, BPD is very treatable. I do DBT, I do EMDR, which is trauma therapy, I do schema therapy, and I do a bit of cognitive behavioral therapy. And all of these together twice a week have helped me greatly improve my BPD. Having BPD is a choice is my next one I'm going to talk about. This one is crazy. I don't know who in the world would ask for BPD. And secondly, BPD is caused by trauma often. And you can't choose to have trauma in your life as a child. It's not a choice that I made. I wasn't like, oh my God, let me spice up my life with some trauma. So that one is definitely a myth. I would never choose to feel this way. I would never choose to have to battle with my mind every single day. It's hard. It really is hard to live like this. Then I'm going to talk about people with BPD do not help themselves. Now, this may be true if they're untreated, but I know that I've helped myself so much. I've had to be my support system some days. I've had to be everything for myself. I've had to be the person that comforts me, the person that picks me up off the bathroom floor when I'm crying hysterically. I've had to do it for myself. I've had to choose every day to work on my BPD. I've had to take myself to appointments. I've had to find the right therapist, the right dietitian. I've had to find a team that works for me, a good psychiatrist. I have to take my medications. People with BPD want to help themselves. Maybe they just don't know how. So approach it with empathy rather than saying, oh, you just don't want to help yourself. You don't know what's going on in their mind and maybe why they can't help themselves. Maybe they don't have access to the right treatment. So I think people with BPD definitely do want to help themselves. No one wants to be stuck feeling this way. No one wants to be unhealthy and have these thoughts going through their mind all day. This one is a little bit more morbid. People with BPD do not commit suicide. So BPD does have a higher risk of suicidal behaviors and self-harm, but people for some reason do not think that they will go through with it. They think it's just a threat. It's definitely not a threat. That it's not an attention-seeking behavior. It is a genuine feeling of emptiness that people with BPD get, where they're just so numb that they can't feel anything, they can't think far enough ahead, and it should never be just brushed off. If someone is telling you they're suicidal ever, you need to contact their family members, contact the police, do whatever you need to do to keep that person in your life, because suicide is serious and it's not a way that you want to lose a friend or a loved one. Okay, next, only women suffer from BPD. So this one is weird to me. I don't know why people think this, but old research actually showed that it was more commonly found in women, but now it is equal in men and women affected by BPD. So it shows up differently for sure. Men tend to do more impulsive behaviors, whereas women tend to be on the side of emotional instability. But BPD does not discriminate with race, with gender, with age. BPD can affect anybody that's had a traumatizing childhood or a hard upbringing. BPD doesn't care if you're a man or a woman. It may just present differently and may be harder to diagnose. Okay, next, everyone with BPD is the same. So if you've met one borderline person, you know them all. That's definitely not true. You can have a combination of all of the 9. I have 5 of them, and I know a few borderline people that I'm dear friends with that have a completely different borderline than me. So you don't know everybody with BPD just because you met one person with borderline personality disorder. And don't assume that, and don't write off BPD people just because you met someone that was crazy with borderline. You know what? They weren't treated, and maybe now they're better. BPD can change so much. I know I've grown so much as a person and changed so much in the past year that I want to scream at my old self and be like, why are you acting the way you're acting? Like, you have BPD, but I didn't know. And when it's untreated, it's, you just think it's your feelings and you think it's the appropriate way to react. You don't know what the appropriate way to react is. So you don't know everyone with BPD just because you met one person. I hope this video was helpful for you guys in understanding BPD a little bit more and seeing that maybe you don't know everything you think you know about people with BPD. Thank you for watching my channel. Please subscribe. I have a personal blog that I write on about mental health and body positivity and anti-diet culture, anti-fat phobia. So if you are interested in any of that, please follow my blog. I'll link it in the description box below. Please hit the like and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Thank you.